Hey guys, welcome to American Hobbyist, where today we're going to talk about buying and selling motorcycles and if you in fact can make any money doing it. Before we get started, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor.
Big shout out to Pestology for sponsoring the channel. They do anything from pest control services to wildlife to termite, bed bug, crawl space cleanouts, moisture barriers. They service from Atlanta to Athens up to Gainesville, anywhere in between. They're all over North Georgia, and they're highly rated. So yeah, give them a shout.
So, now the first rule of buying and selling anything, whether it's a car, real estate, motorcycle, boat, the first rule is that you make your money at the point of purchase. Now, I understand that that's kind of a loaded question. So what that really means is you need to know the value of whatever it is you're buying before you buy it. So, just for example's sake, we're going to pop around and see what we're currently working on. Okay, this is a 2001 Suzuki Bandit 1200. Now, the bike has got 28,000 miles on it, and it is neglected. It needs some TLC. But here's the kicker. The bike runs. The internals are good. I heard the bike crank up for a hot second here in my shop. So I know that it's worth resurrecting. Now, these are good bikes. They're very desirable. Upright riding position. That's actually a Gixxer 1100 engine from, I think, the late 80s or early 90s, something like that. But they're carbureted, oil cooled, very easy to work on. But this bike needs some love. Now, I paid $900 for this bike, and I knew it was worth it solely on the premise that the bike runs and the miles are not outrageously high. So we know we've got some potential here. So if you look online and look at these bikes in good running condition, they will sell for $3,000 to $3,500. So we know what the bike is worth. So now we need to look into what it's going to take to get the bike safely, reliably on the road. Now, and we're gonna dive into what all this bike needs in a separate series. We're gonna do kind of a build series, a resurrection series. And we'll scroll over to what else is currently in the shop. Now, this bike is not for sale. That's my baby. It's the newest edition. That's a 2015 Super Duke. This bike is for sale. This is a 2013 Duke 690. Now, I bought this bike almost 2 years ago. Maybe not quite, something close to that, and I paid $5,000 for it. The bike had about 7,000 miles on it and did not need a thing. Had been maintained very well. I have ridden the bejesus out of it. Well, maybe not so much. The bike's got 9,000 miles on it now, so it's a weekend warrior. I don't commute on any of my motorcycles. So, but we've done a lot of maintenance on the bike. We've fixed coolant leaks. We have reinforced radiator lines. We have rebuilt the front forks. We've done some stuff to it. But here's the thing: any aftermarket snippets on this bike or this one, any high dollar aftermarket bits and bobs are not going to bring you any money in the sale of the bike. You can't jack a price up because you decided to put Olin's internals inside the forks, or you decided to jet the carbs and put pod filters on it and a full exhaust. You can't really ask for that money back when you resell it. So you have to keep that in mind when you're fixing these bikes. You have to be conscious of what kind of money am I putting into the bike versus the money that I'm going to get on return. Now, the little 690, I'm asking $4,500 for this bike. That price is negotiable, but I think the bike is worth it. Now you'll say, well, that's less than you paid. Right, it is. But I also got almost 2 years of riding the bike out of it. So if it only costs me $500 to get 2 years of riding out of the bike, then I've done real well. And we spent a lot of time and effort maintaining the bike with new tires and new brake pads and the other stuff that I mentioned. So am I going to make any money on that bike? Probably not, but I bought it to ride. Now we'll go further into the depths of my shackled up shop here. This, I wish we had a better view of it. Really, I should have pulled it out. This is a 1986 Honda CB700, Honda CB700 SC. That is a Nighthawk S. Now, this is a real sad story. I bought this bike from a antique Honda enthusiast. He had two of these that were, one of them was mint condition and this one that was not quite mint. Now if you're looking at it, you're thinking, golly, if this ain't mint. And it's if you look closely, there's a few dings. There's a crack right here. But overall the bike is in great condition cosmetically. We'll get to that in a second. But I paid $1,500 for this bike. I had the carburetors were professionally rebuilt. Shout out to my guy Chris at Racing Sport Services right by Road Atlanta. And what else did I do? I rebuilt the petcock. I rebuilt the front end and fixed the wobble. I put new tires on the bike. And this was my favorite motorcycle to ride for a little while. So total I had about $1,800 in this bike, or have $1,800 in this bike. And it had a value of about $3,000. I was in pretty good with this one. I didn't have the intention on selling it, but I always knew that, hey, I've got equity in this thing. And then the unthinkable happened. It was our first cold snap here in North Georgia, and I crunk it up early Saturday morning just to let the bikes warm up. At that time, these are the only two bikes I had. This was being worked on, so it was taken apart. And I crunked this up to let it idle. And it idled for about 10 minutes and then made a horrendous noise and seemingly jumped time and seized its engine. So I went from having $1,500 worth of equity in it to being over my head by about $1,800. But we ain't giving up on it yet. We're looking for an engine for that bike, and we may never have that equity in it again. But at least we'll have some life back in it. So number one, I can ride this dang thing, and number two, if we do get in a tight spot and have to sell it, we can at least hopefully make our money back on it. So let's talk about we're in the mid process here. So we've got $900 in this bike. I have taken the carburetors off to get them professionally rebuilt by my guy Chris up there at Racing Sport. That's going to cost about $250. These front forks need to These front forks need to be rebuilt. That's going to cost about $200. So just right there, we're looking at being about $1,500 into this thing, and that's before we dive any deeper. But those are the only two things that I'm going to have to pay somebody to fix. Everything else I can pretty well fix myself. If I can't fix it, I can call a friend, get some input, get some advice. But there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done to this bike. That chain is worn out. That rear sprocket is worn out. The tires are good, actually. You can see evidence right there where the bike has been laid down. Thankfully, not at speed. The fuel tank is in reasonably good shape. And there's a lot of wiring. A previous owner put these, ridiculous, stupid, god-awful LED strips. And that's supposed to be a turn signal for some reason. I don't know whose idea that was, but so all that's coming off. If you look right here, this nightmare of stuff going on, that goes to the tail tidy, if you even want to call it that, if it even tidied anything up. Bless America. Excuse me. That's just how god awful that is. But that's all manual labor. That's all stuff that it's going to take shop hours for me in here deciphering all that. It's not necessarily going to cost me any money. It'll just cost me late night hours, which is factored in. So we're gonna rest easy, accepting that we're gonna have about $1,800 in this bike. Some of this other stuff that needs fixing, all these are really cheap. Those things right there are about $12 a piece. Those factory levers, new grips. A lot of this stuff is going to be freshened up. Previous owner these are Pro Taper bars, which are good quality. We're going to keep those. And everything else works. So if we can be in this bike for $2,000 or less, which is absolutely feasible, I'm confident we could sell it for $3,000. If we decide to sell it, here's my problem, and most of you can probably sympathize. After I put a bunch of blood, sweat, and tears, like I did back in that thing over there, I'm going to be emotionally attached. I won't sell it for my firstborn, but we'll see. We'll see how it looks when we dig deep. No front fender. We're going to need one of those too. But all that stuff we're going to dive into in a different series. But this is just it's time for this topic. It's winter time. Nobody's riding motorcycles. In fact, this is it's beautiful outside today here in North Georgia, but these days are scattered far and few between. It's typically raining, so nobody's riding motorcycles. Stuff like this piles up in people's garages. They need Christmas money. You know what I mean? So this time of the year, projects and bikes in general, all sorts of toys are going for cheap. So 'tis the season. So keep your eyes peeled. Scour Craigslist. Scour Facebook Marketplace. These deals are absolutely there to be had, and hopefully you can go scoop you up a deal and resurrect some of these motorcycles that are being forgotten, being neglected, and maybe make a buck or two on the way. Until next time.